Hey everyone, you're listening to the Fierce Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Harrison from melissacatherineharrison.com. In the near decade I've been coaching powerful women, I found one of the biggest problems we face is not trusting our intuition and acting on it enough, not trusting ourselves enough. More fulfillment, more enjoyment, and more success always follow when we trust the intuitive nudges. So what stops us, and how can we tune in more? On this show, I sit down with incredible women to discuss their take on this, examples of them following the nudges, and the strategies they take so we can all do the same and rise together. I'm so glad you're joining us. Angela Wheat. Angela, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Melissa. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to hear what you have to share. You have been a godsend to me for, I think, almost 6 years now. It's been a while that we've been connected.
It has.
Yeah.
Really, it seems like a while, but we've done so much good work together. Yeah.
Yes, it feels like lifetimes that I've known you with all of the help you've given me. Absolutely. So to start us off, would you mind sharing a bit about your professional background, maybe some hobbies and interests that you have, anything you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a shamanic practitioner for about 16 years now. I've been doing it professionally. Yeah. And been on the shamanic healing path for over 20. So what I do is I help people, and I will say primarily women, it's most of my clientele, to work through the things that are just holding them back. And those things are really multifaceted. You know, it's not just as straightforward as I need to say some affirmations and change a few patterns and I'm good. There's all these different layers to it. And the layers that I help with is the energetic layers, the soul layers. I work a lot with getting women and the few men I work with out of their patterns of dysfunction. But it goes so much beyond the pattern itself. It could be something from a past lifetime. It could be, this big energetic, quote unquote, block in their energy field. It could be a lineage thing. So that's what I do. That's my passion and purpose work. And outside of that, I love nature. I kind of like to think of myself as this like wild woodland creature most of the time. Running around the woods, examining rocks and plants and animals and, living wild and free and braless, right? And other than that, my soul food is my artwork. I love to paint, and I recently got into leather craft, and I am starting my own handbag line.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Do you find that the work that you do as a shaman also influences your art? I mean, I would imagine so, but I don't have the ability you do, so I'm curious what your experience is.
Absolutely. A lot of the paintings that I do, they actually come from either dreams that I've had or shamanic journeys that I've taken. So, yeah, I've got one on my easel right now. That was a combination, started out as a dream, and then I felt like there was more information that needed to come forward. And so I took a shamanic journey and got the rest of the information that I needed from that.
Wow. Would you be willing to share a little bit about what a shamanic journey is? I don't know that many people would know.
Yeah. Okay, so great. A shamanic journey is basically going into an alternate perceptual state.
Okay.
So in my case, I use either my rattle or I use drumming. And that repetitive sound helps to just switch your brain from its everyday to a more focused, it kind of thins the veil between ordinary reality and the world of spirit and energy. So with a journey, it's kind of like a guided meditation, only when I'm doing it, I'm just guiding myself down. When I do it with others, I will guide them to wherever they need to go. But you go into these spaces to gain information, right? So say you have something that you're wrestling with. You're looking for answers. So you can go down and you can ask to see, okay, what would it look like if I choose this course? What would it look like if I choose that course? And so it's almost a tool to the intuition. And there's other reasons you can journey as well. You can go there to meet with like your spirit guides, your animal guides. You can even go to connect in with your lineage. There's so many things that you can do with shamanic journeying. It's actually one of the tools that many cultures use to gain information or bring back even like skills, regaining lost skills.
Really?
So, yeah. So say you could go and look at a past lifetime where you had a certain skill, and you could look at that and bring that back as well. Granted, you'd probably still have to practice with it,
Sure.
because you wouldn't have the muscle memory and so forth. But yeah.
So along those lines, and this is a bit off script, but now that I have you here, I'm super curious with this line. If you can tap into a past life and past skills, what are your feelings on a future life? Like, are the timelines fluid? Are you able to tap into different realities like that?
So there's a lot of theories on this. And actually part of the decision-making part, right? When I said you could look at what would I learn from this decision? What would I learn from that decision? That's almost kind of going into a bit of a future. Now, they say that time is not linear.
Right.
We can step outside of time. And when you go into these alternate perceptual states, it is, in a sense, stepping outside of time. So could you see a future lifetime? I would say that's a possibility. Yes.
Okay.
I also would say that we're not predestined. So it's a future potential.
Future potential, yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. I love that. So what's your take on what intuition actually is?
So intuition, I feel like, is just a part of our extrasensory perception, right? It's something that we all have. Every one of us has that intuition there. But it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you grow it. And if you don't use it, it can kind of become weaker or harder to detect. I don't believe it ever goes away, right? It's a part of you. It's wired into us. There's this world of living energy all around us, and we are connected to that, and our energy body, our aura, it's like it's always reaching out. It's always touching the energy around us. And it doesn't have to just be like right there in your vicinity to touch it either. It's like we can send out these feelers and connect in to somewhere across the world. It's a really beautiful thing that a lot of people just they don't know about it.
Yes. Yes. Where do you feel it in your body? I've asked every woman this. I know how I feel it, and it seems like while we're all unique, there are some common threads. So I'm curious what your experience is of it.
Well, I would say that I either feel it in the heart
Mm,
or in the belly.
yeah.
And the Andean tradition that I was trained in, they say that the heart, that's your place of munai. That is the place of love, and that is one of the strongest centers in the body.
Mm,
And then your belly, so like right below your belly button there, you have your Cusco. And that is like the main energy eye of your body, where you can see and feel and taste energy.
interesting.
So, but I would say even before I had that training, that's where I'd feel it. The heart and the belly. I don't know if that corresponds to what other people have said, but
It corresponds to how I feel it as well. Some people
yeah.
say it's a full body sensation. I've had some women say it's more of like a ringing in their heads kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a yes for me, like a go in this direction, it feels expansive and light in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's a no, it feels like a little click in my belly. It's almost like something's turning, like
Mm-hmm.
negative action, like, hold back.
Right. Yeah. I actually, I also will feel it in my left hip. Like my left hip will twitch in response to like a strong yes, like a confirmation. And
You
that
train
is
that, or has that always been there for you?
that has always been there for me. It was something that in my training was kind of looked at as an anomaly. Um, and until I talked to one of the shamans in Peru that said, "Oh, that's lightning blood," and I'm like, "Okay." uh, it's like, yeah, it you twitch like when lightning strikes. It's like
Oh,
this confirmation, and like, okay, it makes sense. Finally, somebody has an answer. Like I had healers try to cut it out of me, thinking it was something wrong. And over the years, and then somebody's like, "Oh yeah, that's just this. No big deal."
I love that.
Yeah.
Great. So I have a couple more questions for you about intuition in general.
Uh huh.
Can you share with us your take on the difference between fear and intuition, whether it's the sensation of it or how we should approach it, anything that you think would be helpful to share?
Yeah. So that's one of the big things that people ask me a lot. Like, how do I know? Like, am I just in fear or am I going in the wrong direction?
Right.
And I believe you're going to ask me to share a story, and I do go into in the story a little bit about my own journey with that.
Great.
Um, but yeah, sometimes when we're doing something new, it's like this fear will come up, and it'll almost feel like you're going in the wrong direction, right? Because there's so much fear, and our ego, as wonderful as it can be and keeping us safe,
Mhm.
it also fears death of your current personality.
Yes.
And so any major changes in your life means that it's like it's getting really nervous. right? So
Mhm.
you may have this big positive change coming up, and it feels like, you're going to die
Yes.
because you are slugging through and you are just, fighting against this ego.
Clawing
Oh,
life, like holding on however it can.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, kicking and screaming.
Yes.
So I am going to quote one of my favorite authors here. I don't know if you've read anything by Martha Beck,
A couple of
but
things.
she has, Finding Your Way in a Wild New World. Love that book. And I believe it's Being Your Own North Star, something like that.
Mm.
But she talks about this analogy that absolutely resonated with me. And it's shackles on or shackles off.
Mm.
And it's like, if you're moving in a direction and it doesn't quite feel right, does it feel like that direction you're moving in is actually like chaining you, binding you, keeping you
Contraction.
from being more of you,
Yes.
right? Or
Yeah.
shackles off, like, this is really hard. I'm trying to push through this, but ultimately it feels like this opportunity and it feels freeing. So I have I have used that for years, and it resonates so much for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I've never had a succinct way to remember that because it's contraction or expansion. And that's a
Right.
great visual for that. I love it. Okay, great. So the fear would be um, like remaining in the shackles and staying safe. The fear could guide us that way. And we're looking to take the shackles off, even though fear tends to, in my experience, when you take the shackles off, that's when fear is the loudest. It likes to scream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they will, even in the shamanic training that I went through, they'll call it the hungry ghosts, right? So it's like you have these past ways of being, and all of these things that you're having to let go of, right? To move forward. But the hungry ghosts are still going to be there, kind of like tapping and trying to get you to feed them.
Mm.
And if you feed them, they get stronger and stronger. And if you don't feed them, they will fade away. But as you're just about to break through, that's when they throw a tantrum and they get the loudest. That's when it's just so big, so scary. And then you cross that threshold and it's like, bye bye, see ya. Yeah.
I call it an extinction burst. That's like
Hey.
I say in a past life, it was in this current life, but in a past version of Melissa, I was a behavior specialist, and one of the terms is extinction burst. When you put a behavior on extinction, when you stop responding to it,
Right.
it gets bigger before it goes away. So it's the same thing with energy.
Yeah.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. So, in your experience, what do you think the barriers are for women following their intuition?
Well, the thing is, we're still in this primarily male dominated society,
Yeah.
and men and women they're wired differently. Women, it's a lot about the feeling state. And when you look at a woman's energy field, it tends to be a lot more expansive, and they will have so many branches going like in every which way, right?
Hmm.
When I look at a man's energy field, it's they can be very focused, and like their energy will go in a few directions, but not to the degree that I see in most women. And I feel like because of that, there's more emphasis on just the logic, the reasoning, and so forth in kind of the more male dominated mindset, right? Than the feeling states. You go into the corporate world and you tell them, well, I got a gut feeling. They're going to be like, yeah, where's the numbers? Right?
Yes.
I've experienced this.
Same.
Yeah. So, and two, so along the way, we start out, or most of us start out pretty open. But as we're going and people tell us that what we're experiencing is not really what we're experiencing, well, we tend to start shutting that down or second guessing and third guessing and just until that intuition gets covered up. One of the things that I tell my clients is acknowledge that you are feeling or experiencing something. Okay. Don't just brush it off as, oh no, I'm just imagining it. Right. And a lot of my students, when I'm training them to start feeling, experiencing, and even at times seeing energy, I'm like, if you see something out of the corner of your eye and it caught your attention, you may not have to know what it was. Just acknowledge that it was there. Same way with intuition. If you catch a little something, at least acknowledge that it was there. And that is going to lead to you trusting yourself more.
Yes.
Because you didn't immediately push it away. And as you trust yourself more and more, it builds that intuition.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And now, do you have some stories to share with us? Maybe one or a few about following your intuition?
Yeah, so I am going to use more recent example in my life. I am actually going to tell you about when I didn't follow my intuition.
I bet this is a juicy story.
Yeah, so as much training as I have and as much as I tell my clients to listen to their intuition, what do? I don't listen, right? Oh, so a few years ago I decided, for some unknown reason, I needed to get a normal job, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a career, right? I'm 40. I need to, gosh, what am I doing with my life? I need to get out there and start a career, right? Even though I had this beautiful business, doing my shamanic work and so forth, I'm like, I can balance both of it. It'll be fine, and part of it was kind of this societal pressure, and part of it was money, right?
Yes.
We follow the money trail, and it often leads us astray, but whatever. Not that you can't be purposeful and make good money, but so I decided I'm gonna go be a real estate agent, right? Like, okay, I like looking at the land on Zillow and things like that, right? I could be a real estate agent. And I kept getting these hints. I would get this pit in my stomach feeling whenever I started looking at real estate courses. And then I'm like, no, I just need to push through. Okay. Not doing my shackles on, shackles off test, right? I'm this wild woodland creature basically trying to break into, corporate America. So I go and I take the class, and I kept getting physically sick during the class. I would get dizzy. I would get headaches. I'm like, whatever, I'm pushing through. And so then I interview with this big company with like these high-end luxury properties and all of this, going, I don't even know how to put mascara on. And I got to go buy a bra. So, I'm frantically searching for, these work clothes and so forth. And I do my interview and I get hired on right away. Nailed that. But every time I go into the office, I'm dizzy, I'm anxious, my body is just telling me like, this is not right. I go on my first listing appointment, and I'm not going to get into that too much, but it is now a cautionary tale for my office because it was such a bad experience. And my intuition was ringing before I ever stepped in this guy's house.
Yep.
Luckily I was able to extract myself without being physically harmed, but it was very sketchy. That was my first listing appointment.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I go on, I get clients, and the clients that I'm attracting are the awful clients.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are calling you at 2 a.m. screaming about something that isn't even in your control, and so forth, without getting too much into that. But it was like I went the wrong direction, and I kept telling myself, I'm just going to push through. If I just try harder, it will be fine, right? Well, as this goes on, I'm about 2.5 years into it, and I've pretty much dropped all of my shamanic clients because I am so stressed out that I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
My nervous system is a wreck. I was starting to have all of these nervous system related problems. And I'm just about to start my next push, right? So I am going to push through, and I'm starting a YouTube channel, and I'm starting all this marketing and like all of these things. And, well, I had this little flash of intuition. I had a visual flash in of me with a broken arm.
Really?
And I've never broken a bone before. And I brushed it off. I'm like, whatever, because I'm so out of touch with my intuition at this point. I've been pushing it away.
Yeah.
And sure enough, about a year ago, a couple days after New Year's, I slip on the ice and I break my arm. And it was my dominant arm. And guess what? I can't type. I can't do videos. I can't do all the stuff that I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point, part of me just continuing was I've put this much effort into it. I can't quit now.
Yes.
And I think another part of it was I was getting recognition from people for my achievements that I had never gotten in my life. So from friends, from family, like they're like, oh, you have a normal job, oh, you got rookie of the year, and these things. And that little people pleasing part of me that was still there was like, oh, I'm finally getting recognition. Whereas before they're like, you're a what? A shamanic practitioner. I actually had one family member that went around telling people that I was a lawyer because he didn't want them to know what I actually did. And when I became a real estate agent, he's like, oh, now I can tell people you're a real estate agent. Oh, like, oh, finally, you have a normal job, right?
Right.
So, anyways, I'm sitting there with my broken arm, not able to work, dropped all my real estate clients, going, what the heck am I doing with my life? I'm miserable. But I couldn't really see that and embody that until I stopped. I had stopped doing all the things I had loved. I had stopped my purpose work. I had stopped my artwork, and I had this beautiful homestead. I had farm animals and a big garden and things, but I wasn't enjoying any of those things. I didn't have time to enjoy them. And so I'm like, where do I go? What do I do now? And I got loud and clear, move. And I'm like, what? And so my husband and I had built this beautiful homestead in North Idaho. Mm-hmm. And we literally built it, from the ground up. And we actually were living in a fifth wheel trailer because we didn't even have our home built yet. Right. And I'm like, I'm supposed to give all this up? It's like there's finally an end in sight with our house. We had our house framed up and, dried in, but not completed. Yeah. And I kept getting move. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, where? And I got the Ozarks. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've never even been to the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, why would it be? Right. Yeah.
Right. So then, yeah, why wouldn't it be somewhere, I know and love? Okay. And so I'm like, well, if this is going to happen, I'm like, well, I need a house. I want a house. I want a shop for my husband. I need a second home on the property for my father-in-law. And I want to be on a lake. It was kind of my like, well, fine. If we're going to do this, I want this.
Right? Order. There you go. Yeah. Yes.
Well, lo and behold, I found a property with all of that.
I love it.
Like immediately.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, well, okay, there's the property, but I still have to sell my property. And I'm looking at this market and it's going down. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and we have a house that isn't even finished, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, this is going to be a nightmare to sell. And this property isn't even going to be available by that time. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I guess I'll convince my husband that we need to move to the Ozarks. Amazingly, it worked. So like a week later, we put the house up for sale. And the neighbors contact us. They want to buy it. Yeah. Yeah, they want to expand their property, and they've been living in a trailer too, and they're ready to get into a house, and that would put them that much further. It was just like boom, boom, boom. And so, mm-hmm. So that was the easiest real estate transaction I've ever done. We put the property here in northern Arkansas under contract, sight unseen, and all of the fear and the self-doubt just kept hammering in and hammering in.
Oh, I bet.
But ultimately, it was shackles off. So we flew out here, we saw the property, fell in love with it, and we ended up in just the perfect area. Just loving it here. So it was like I didn't listen to my intuition, but it led to this big leap of faith, which led to something even better. So it put us in a better financial situation so that I can pursue just my shamanic work and my artwork and not have to have another job. My husband can pursue his furniture making. It all just like lined up just right. And yet it was the biggest leap of faith.
That is an amazing story and such a testament to a few things that I was hearing as you were sharing. One is that your intuition is never going to be quiet. It's going to keep getting louder and louder, and life will be more chaotic around you until you, like you said, shackles off, until you follow
Right.
that guidance.
Yeah.
And then when you finally listen, I've had these experiences too where it's like anyone on the outside would go, that's magic. I don't how there's no way that could have happened. But when you're tuned in and you actually listen, stuff just happens. It just happens.
Yeah, for sure. And often it can happen really quickly.
Yes, that's been my experience too.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
good. Is there anything that you'd like to share? Any tips or tricks or little insights that other women might benefit from?
So I would say, besides the acknowledging that you're feeling something,
Mhm.
really just find the space, find a quiet space and go, where am I right here, right now? So that you're just really grounded, just like go, okay, you know, I see a color, I feel a sensation, I hear a sound. Like these things can help to just bring us the here and now. And then say, what do I need right now? And typically it's something will pop in. And it's that first thing that pops into your head is generally, that's going to be what you need. When you can quiet the chatter, quiet the distractions, and just really tune in there.
Perfect. I love that advice. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
For right now, email. I got rid of my website when I was going through the real estate chaos and wasn't taking on new clients. I am taking on clients again.
Great.
So anwheat82@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I have a Facebook group, the School of Living Energy, if you'd
Great
like
group.
to
Yeah.
join that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And I'll make sure to include that below here in the show notes so people can reach out. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This has been, I mean, it's always, my time with you is always fantastic. And this was even more enlightening. So thank you so much. I know so many women are going to benefit from this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. If you feel that this episode will help another woman, please share it. Until next time.